Have you ever felt abandoned even while someone is standing right in front of you? When we think of narcissistic discard, we often imagine that someone is walking away without a word and they're being cold and heartless. But discard doesn't always look like that. Sometimes discard is silent, slow, emotional starvation that chips away at your self-worth over time. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lori. I'm a former teacher. I have a master's in school counseling and a transformational coaching certification. I coach women on getting unstuck from their narcissistic or toxic relationships so they can start building peace and joy in their life. Okay, so what is narcissistic discard? Narcissistic discard happens when the narcissist no longer sees you as useful for their ego or control. It can be emotional, physical, or both. It's part of a cycle, and that cycle is idealize, devalue, and discard. And you might have thought discard only happens at the end, but really it can show up in small ways over and over again in your relationship. And that's what kept me stuck for a long time. I thought that discard was leaving, and I was thinking, well, if this cycle continues to happen over and over, but he hasn't actually left, and I don't think he will ever leave, then how can I be in a narcissistic cycle of abuse? But I found out that it can be on a spectrum, and that discard can look like emotional neglect. And I'm gonna put the chart right here. Emotional neglect is on the far left side, and then there's chronic invalidation and stonewalling. And that can look like the silent treatment. I would get the silent treatment for days at a time. It could look like addiction, compulsive behaviors. So they're leading you emotionally. It could look like cheating, and then like on that far right side is cruelty, and then abandonment. Let's talk more about each of these types of discard throughout your relationship. So on the left, again, is that quiet discard. It's emotional neglect and disinterest. They give you no affection, no eye contact, and no emotional availability. You feel invisible, like you're the only one in the relationship. You're the only one trying to connect. It's chronic invalidation and stonewalling, where they shut you out, they refuse to engage, or they may even walk away mid-conversation. My ex used to say, I can't solve it today, and then he would walk away, and I would just think, okay, well, when are you going to solve it? Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it good? What's the plan? Is there a plan? And of course there never was, because it's easier just to walk away and not talk about the problems. So you begin to abandon yourself just to keep the peace. I knew that if I kept bringing things up, that it was likely going to cause a big fight, or it would cause an argument that would end in the silent treatment, and he wouldn't talk to me for days. So a lot of times I would just shut up and keep my thoughts and needs to myself. So in the middle of this spectrum, again, is that addiction or compulsive behaviors. These can feel really devastating. They are really devastating. They can feel even worse than abandonment a lot of times. And this consists of alcohol, porn, gaming, whatever it is that removes them emotionally from the relationship. You end up feeling more like a caregiver than a partner. And then there's also cheating, which feels really horrible. And it might be flaunted or denied. They might use gaslighting to keep you from, figuring out that that's what they're doing. You feel discarded emotionally, even if they haven't left physically. And then again, on the far right side, that, we can argue that some of these are worse than the others. Addiction can be worse than sudden abandonment, but then there's the emotional cruelty that includes rage, insults, humiliation. They destroy your confidence to gain control of you in the relationship. And then again, that sudden abandonment or ghosting, they vanish a lot of times in a moment of crisis, often with no explanation, and you're left reeling, traumatized, and with no closure. And that happened to me in my first marriage. We went to counseling for I think like 3 times, and And at the end, he came to me and said, I really don't want to carry on with this relationship. I'm done. And he walked out the door, and he wasn't even upset. Meanwhile, I'm crying in a big heap and mess. This happened many years ago, so I'm over it now. But, you know, at the time, I was devastated. I had 3 young kids. I didn't know how I was going to move forward. I didn't know how I was going to take care of them on my own. It's really difficult. And then my second marriage, I was abandoned emotionally. He was not going to leave me. He was he was a very loyal type person. He was going to stay. And I had to decide that I'm done with this. I am done with feeling like I'm invisible, or the pain that I was being dealt with, the different arguments with rage, and my walking on eggshells, my mood being affected by his mood all the time. So why do narcissists discard in these ways? It's because discard is a tool for them. It's used to punish, to test you, or to regain control. So think about it. If a narcissist or toxic person doesn't want to face a problem in the relationship and they walk away, they have control because they're never going to fix the problem, and you're left dealing with it. You can deal with it or you can leave. Often the emotional discard happens long before the physical one does. So, when I think back to my first marriage and I was abandoned physically at the end, I can think, I was emotionally discarded in the beginning because he had all these other hobbies and things that he would go spend his time with. I would be left at home with the kids, and I loved being a mom. I loved being home with my kids. So I let a lot of that pass, but I shouldn't have, because he was emotionally discarding me. So when you resist, you start to put up boundaries, and they find a replacement, they walk away completely. So even after they leave, they may return to restart the cycle. So you hear about women leaving 7 or more times on average, and then their partner comes back and love bombs them again, and they get sucked right back in, because we have that hope that things are going to get better, and usually they don't. The emotional toll of being discarded, whether it's slow or sudden, discard causes deep emotional damage to you. You question your worth. You wonder what you did wrong. You hold on to hope that if you just do better, things will go back to how they were in the beginning. And that's just not true. So this cycle creates trauma bonding. You're caught between anger and fear of losing your partner forever. Okay, if this is sounding like your situation and you're stuck in the cycle, then consider signing up for one of my Peaceful Clarity calls. I'll talk more about it at the end, but you can find the link for it in the description. Okay, how do you heal when the discard wasn't obvious to you? If you were never given closure, it's easy to stay stuck, like I did after my first marriage. But emotional abandonment is real. Start reconnecting with your feelings, your boundaries, and your unmet needs. And you can do that by practicing self-care. That could be journaling, it could be doing yoga, it could be meditating, it could be praying, it could be walking outside in nature. There's numerous ways that you can begin healing this trauma that's stuck inside of you. And I'll give you a journal prompt right now to help. I'll put it on the screen. What parts of myself do I abandon trying to hold on to someone who had already discarded me emotionally? And know that it wasn't your fault. Narcissistic discard is not about you. It's about control. And he has used this behavior in every single relationship. By now, he is so practiced at it. He knows what works and what doesn't. He probably will not take the time to heal. If he does, then great, but look for years of counseling, most likely. Narcissists don't like facing that deep insecurity within them, and that's why they don't like to go to counseling or take the steps to heal. They may pretend at it for a little while, but they won't take those steps. It's easier for them to just move on with someone else than to do the deep actual healing that they need to do. But you can heal. You can take those steps. Healing starts with acknowledging the betrayal. Remember, you did not cause this problem. You tried to love this person unconditionally, and that's not your fault. And let me talk about the peaceful clarity call if you're interested. If this video resonated with you and you're feeling stuck in the pain of discard, then I want to invite you to schedule a peaceful clarity call. It's a 45-minute call. It's a coaching session. We're going to talk through what's happening with you and your relationship, and I can help you take the next step forward. You'll get a customized PDF with the next steps after our session. And it doesn't matter if you're focused on healing, planning your escape, or just rebuilding your confidence. The call is $97 and it's designed to help you walk away with a sense of direction and peace. So if that sounds good to you, then check out the description below. And if you stayed to the end, thank you so much for watching. Let me know any subjects on narcissism and toxic partners that you would like me to cover in the future videos. And there is somebody that commented on my last video that they had something they wanted me to talk about, and I'm going to work on that video very soon. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.